The story opens with a young man traveling along a quiet path. He comes across a group of children at play, and among them, one child has injured their knee. Kneeling beside the child, he carefully treats the wound and applies a bandage with steady hands. The child quickly realizes the pain has faded and reacts with visible relief. The young man, known to others as Mr. Apothecary, advises the child to be more careful while playing and allows them to return to their friends. After expressing gratitude, the child leaves. Afterward, he resumes his journey. As he walks, he glances at a page he carries and silently considers where to begin his work for the day. Before he can decide, a shopkeeper from a nearby market calls out to him, addressing him as Mr. Apothecary and asking for his attention. Recognizing him, the shopkeeper brings him inside. At first, he assumes the shopkeeper is experiencing the same physical discomfort as before. However, the shopkeeper denies this and instead presents something else. He explains that he has received a difficult burden from an influential source and believes it may be of use to Mr. Apothecary. Inside, a young elf girl lies covered in wrappings. The shopkeeper explains that she had been pushed beyond her limits and then abandoned. He adds that beings like her are sometimes used as rare ingredients for powerful medicine, though he himself lacks the means to make use of such a resource. He offers Mr. Apothecary the opportunity to take her instead. Stepping closer, our guy examines her condition in detail. Her injuries are severe. Her fingernails are gone, her body shows signs of advanced decay, and her eyes lack proper response, with one eye entirely missing. Most of her teeth are gone, leaving only a few at the back. Her skin is marked with numerous scars, and her fingers have become unnaturally soft. From these signs, he understands that her internal condition must be just as damaged. Despite this, faint signs suggest that she is still aware of her surroundings. Her hearing is impaired, yet she reacts weakly, as if she can still perceive something. In her fragile state, she seems to cling to a simple desire, as though longing to return to a place she once knew. The shopkeeper urges Mr. Apothecary to make a decision. He suggests that she could still serve as material and offers to sell her at a low price, emphasizing that he does not want her to die in his shop. After considering everything, Mr. Apothecary chooses to take her. The shopkeeper reacts with surprise when he asks for something to carry the girl. He questions the request, unable to understand why the apothecary would choose to take her himself, especially after traveling from such a distant place. Despite this, he insists, making it clear that time is important. Carefully, he lifts the elf, securing her against himself to prevent her from slipping. Wrapping her in cloth, he ties it firmly so she remains supported. As he does this, he quietly considers how she might be understanding her current situation. After adjusting his belongings and positioning his bag toward the front, the apothecary continues his journey. Along the way, he enters a forest, choosing a shorter but more uneven path. He informs the elf of the rough route and keeps moving forward. As evening approaches, he stops and decides to rest for the night. Gently removing the cloth, he sets her down in a shaded area and begins preparing food while ensuring she remains secure. While observing her, he notices a slight change in her condition compared to when she was in the city. He considers that her kind has long lived within forests, which may explain this small improvement. He prepares food with a texture soft enough for her to swallow and recognizes that she can still respond to scents. Once the food is ready, he feeds her carefully by hand, allowing her time to eat. Some of it slips from her mouth, but he continues until she has eaten enough. Afterward, he decides they will remain there for the night. As she lies down, Mr. Apothecary checks her condition again and realizes that her body temperature is extremely high. Considering her wounds, he determines that the cause may be severe inflammation, exhaustion, or a deeper infection affecting her internal organs. Regardless of the exact cause, he decides to proceed with treatment focused on her symptoms. He begins preparing a medicinal mixture using available plants known for reducing fever and fighting infection. Combining ingredients such as elderflower and wild borage, he crushes a magical stone and adds it to the mixture. Knowing that the bitterness would make it difficult to consume, he adjusts the taste by adding honey and salt. When the medicine is ready, he carefully gives it to her, encouraging her to take it slowly. He continues assisting her until she finishes. Afterward, he tends to her fever by placing damp cloths over her body in an attempt to lower her temperature. As she murmurs weakly, he remains beside her, ensuring she can rest while he works to stabilize her condition. After the elf falls asleep, he remains seated nearby. In silence, he reflects on his earlier thoughts, considering that what he had in mind may have been careless. Even so, he holds on to the intention of helping her return to where she belongs. He recognizes that those responsible for her condition are from his own kind, the Irtanos. Across the continent, the 5 races have lived with tension and mistrust since the conflict that ended many years ago. To him, the differences between races lie mainly in physical features and traditions, yet he knows that many others do not share this view. He recalls how the market owner handled her without understanding the harm being done and thinks of those who fail to acknowledge other races as individuals at all. The idea that some look down on others without recognizing them as people remains in his mind as he continues to sit there. Gradually, fatigue overtakes him, and he falls asleep. During his rest, he experiences an unsettling dream. When he wakes, morning has already arrived, and the elf's eyes are open as well. Carefully, he lifts her slightly and observes her condition. He notes that her fever appears to have decreased, though he remains cautious, knowing her state is still unstable. He focuses on what must be done to fulfill the simple wish he has recognized in her. To achieve this, he understands that he must treat her thoroughly so she can recover as much of her former state as possible. He accepts that this process will require time and continuous effort, yet he remains committed to helping her. He acknowledges that her injuries are not limited to her body but extend deeper. Without knowing what kind of person she once was, he decides to give her a name that carries a purpose. The name he chooses is Resure, reflecting his intention to restore her condition and allow her to begin again. With this decision made, he continues preparing food. Once the meal is ready, he feeds her and makes preparations to continue their journey. He plans to reach his workshop by the end of the day, ensuring that everything is ready for the next stage of her treatment. They arrive back into his workshop. Once inside, he carefully places her on the sofa, indicating that she will stay there from now on. She looks around, attempting to understand the unfamiliar space, while he gently confirms that this is now her home. After a brief pause, he realizes that he needs to prepare a bath and steps outside, asking her to remain where she is. He makes his way to a nearby house and knocks on the door. A young child opens it with excitement, immediately recognizing him and expecting something he had promised earlier. He apologizes, explaining that something urgent prevented him from bringing it. From inside, a young woman named Ane approaches and gently scolds Monet for being demanding, mentioning that Sensei is busy. She then turns to him with concern, acknowledging that he must be tired. He explains that he has come with a request. She looks surprised, as it is unusual for him to ask for help, yet she listens without hesitation. She offers him some of her old clothes, mentioning that she can adjust them easily. He accepts them with gratitude, and she reassures him that he can rely on her whenever he needs. Returning to his workshop, he begins taking care of Resuri. He notices that she shows almost no response. Her stillness makes him think that she may have endured severe suffering. Marks on her body gradually become visible, including bruises that resemble the pressure of strong restraint. Seeing these injuries, he wonders who could have caused her such harm. He forces himself to focus and shifts his attention to treating her wounds. He carefully applies medicine to the visible injuries to help them heal faster. Afterward, he spreads an herbal ointment over the scars and places a cloth soaked in a special fluid on top, knowing he will need to replace it regularly. Once he finishes, he dresses her in the clothes he received. Among the items, he notices a comb and assumes Ane included it thoughtfully. When he looks at Resure again, he realizes that her appearance has changed significantly after he cleaned and cared for her. With everything settled, he prepares food and makes sure she is cared for. As the tension leaves him, fatigue gradually takes over, bringing a quiet sense of relief. Eventually, he allows himself to rest. Resuri remains seated as he returns carrying food. When he approaches, he notices a slight trembling in her body. He observes her condition carefully and considers possible reasons, whether she is cold or if an illness is returning. Then another possibility occurs to him, and he realizes that he has overlooked something important. He acknowledges his mistake immediately and takes her to the washroom without delay. While assisting her, he observes that although she shows very little outward reaction, she still feels a clear sense of embarrassment. This confirms to him that her awareness of basic bodily needs is still functioning. He begins to consider whether providing proper meals might gradually improve her condition. At the same time, he notices the state of her teeth and realizes that she cannot chew properly. He thinks about possible solutions, including whether she might require artificial support. He also considers getting help from a certain doctor. His thoughts shift toward more serious concerns. He wonders whether recovery would be possible, even if her ability to eat improves. He grows worried about the damage within her body and the worsening condition of her limbs. He considers the possibility that there may be no simple solution and continues to question whether any alternative exists. Afterward, he carefully feeds her and then lifts her, carrying her to another room. He places her down and lets her rest. Watching her, he notices that she appears calmer than before, as if she has finally settled into a quiet state. Sitting beside her, he continues to think about her condition. His mind turns to a rare type of medicine said to restore the body. He recalls hearing that such a substance exists, though it is extremely difficult to obtain. Comparing it to unrealistic stories he has heard before, he focuses on what might actually be possible. Considering his current tools and knowledge, he begins to think about attempting to create something similar on his own. Even with uncertainty surrounding the outcome, he continues searching for a method that could help her recover. Remaining beside the bed, exhaustion eventually overtakes him, and he falls asleep there, staying close to Rizuri. The next morning, the apothecary seats Rizuri outside on a chair. A crow arrives with a letter in its beak. He feeds it grains before it flies off. He then mentions to the elf that he'll be working nearby. With pickaxe in hand, he begins digging not far from her. Rizuri sits quietly on the chair, eating slowly, noticing the scent of the forest and thinking of her home. After a while, Monet arrives at the apothecary's house. Warm greetings are exchanged, and he asks if she has come to help with deliveries. She responds that it is only for today. Observing her, he remarks that the patient girl has arrived and tells Monet that her name is Rizuri. Curiously, Monet asks if he can speak to her, and the apothecary agrees, noting that it might be beneficial for Rizuri to have someone else to interact with. Returning to his old book, he begins crafting a denture, carefully carving boar tusks into teeth. Seated beside Rizuri on the sofa, Monet attempts to engage her in conversation, but she does not respond. Wondering about her silence, she asks why Rizuri-san remains quiet. The apothecary explains that perhaps she is still searching for a reason to speak. Later, Monet puts a crown made of flowers on Rizuri's head. Proudly, she shows it to Oji-san, and he acknowledges her skill, commenting on the beauty of the crown. The girl calls Rizuri pretty, believing she will be his wife. He clarifies that she is a patient brought only to heal her injuries. Insisting that she is pretty, Monet leaves shortly afterward. Sitting beside Rizuri, the apothecary reflects on how to mend her wounded spirit. Recovery must come gradually, he realizes, through small, careful steps. Preparing to begin treatment, he lifts her gently and starts the process of care. Her faint heartbeat reflects the weakness of her small frame. He carefully examines her teeth, plans the first stage of treatment, and fits a denture in her mouth. To mark the change, he chooses the meat given by the livestock farmer for dinner and prepares her first solid meal that evening, softened and cut into small, manageable pieces. He observes her closely as he feeds her, noting subtle responses that suggest returning awareness and sensitivity. Over the following days, she gradually improves. Her appetite grows, and she responds more clearly. He continues to monitor her chewing and swallowing, tracking her progress with care. One day, she suddenly coughs violently and collapses. She struggles to breathe as spasms shake her body. Her chest reddens and her eyes turn bloodshot. He recognizes the signs of neurotoxic poisoning and recalls the potent venom of obsidian spiders, once used for lethal purposes. He struggles to determine when the poisoning occurred and wonders if her former master caused it. Despite the sudden onset, he knows it is not too late to intervene. He focuses on saving her life and immediately begins preparing a treatment to counter the venom. He gives Rizuri some ground charcoal to help empty her stomach and administers senna to counteract the poison. He lays her on the bed and waits as she gradually regains consciousness. When she opens her eyes, a small object lies on the floor. Examining it carefully, he realizes it is not a pill, but more like a hardened shell. It appears that the poison had been sealed inside for some time and has only recently been released. Observing the markings on it, he recognizes them as an ancient language, revealing the malicious intent behind the delayed effect poison. Later, Ane and Monet arrive and immediately notice Rizuri's weak condition. The apothecary explains that the poison seems to be of monster origin and that he must gather ingredients to prepare an antidote. Ane reassures him that they will care for Rizuri in his absence. He apologizes and mentions that he expects to return within 3 days, leaving written instructions for counteracting the poison in the meantime. Ane acknowledges his request, promising to take care of everything and to focus on supporting Rizuri. The apothecary thanks them and assures Rizuri that he will save her, then packs his bag and leaves. Collecting the necessary ingredients, mandragora root, element-converting mana quartz, and a sample of the original toxin taken from the innards of an obsidian spider, he proceeds to a cave where the spiders dwell, reflecting on the usefulness of his old skills. Though it has been a long time since he last handled a weapon, a sense of familiarity washes over him. The cave is filled with numerous spiders, which he defeats efficiently, fully aware that there is no time to waste. Despite some rustiness from inactivity, his experience proves sufficient. He reminds himself that past battles are irrelevant. His focus remains entirely on saving Rizuri. After securing all the required ingredients, he prepares to return immediately to Rizuri, determined to deliver the antidote and ensure her safety. The apothecary returns with the ingredients. He walks up to Rizuri and reassures her that she will recover soon. He stays by her side and treats her carefully. Night falls, but he remains with her. The red rash across her chest slowly fades. Her breathing becomes steady and calm. The most dangerous part of her illness has passed. He gently holds her hand and tells her, "You will be all right." Razure feels his presence. She realizes she is not alone. Slowly, she opens her eyes and senses light around her. When she sees the apothecary, a feeling of comfort fills her. He watches her closely and notices she can speak again. Relief washes over him. He helps her sit up carefully and checks her condition. The poison has lost its power. Her fever drops, and the swelling in her chest decreases. She can move her muscles a little now, but her vision is still blurry. Her pupils react to light, which means her eyes are healing gradually. The mandragora and magic quartz seem to have helped repair the damage to her optic nerves while fighting the poison. He asks if she feels any pain. She answers faintly and recognizes herself. He remembers that he gave her the name Razure earlier. Now he understands. She cannot remember her real identity. She has retrograde amnesia. He feels concerned. She is an elf from a hidden region, but she cannot recall the way back home. He decides he will help her return safely once she is stronger. For now, he focuses completely on her recovery. Razure thanks him softly for saving her life. He reassures her, and himself, that she will recover fully. From that moment, he dedicates himself to restoring her health completely. He stays committed to her well-being until she is fully healed. A few days later, Ane is busy in the kitchen. She glances at Rasure, relieved to see her recovering. To celebrate, she decides to bake a cake, hoping Rasure likes sweets, and Rasure happily says she does. The apothecary watches Ane work and offers to help, but she gently refuses. Noticing the dark circles under his eyes, she grows concerned. He admits he looks worse than he expected. Ane reminds him that Razure has only just recovered, and she wouldn't know what to do if he collapsed as well. She urges him to rely on others sometimes and hands him a hot drink. He thanks her, accepting it with quiet gratitude. As he sits resting, he watches Monet and Razure, a memory from his childhood surfaces. He had once been accused of theft, beaten, and driven out of his village. Alone and starving, he encountered a horned man who offered him food. The stranger asked why he was alone and urged him to eat slowly, showing care in every small gesture. The young apothecary accepted the meal, gaining both strength and a fleeting sense of safety. Now, watching Razure eat with quiet contentment, he recognizes the same kindness. Monet tends to her with patience and attentiveness, mirroring the compassion he once received. Seeing Razure's expression, Ain feels her efforts were worth it. After resting, the apothecary wakes. Ain asks if he is ready to eat, and he thanks her sincerely for the meal. At that moment, a crow taps against the window, carrying a letter. He opens it and reads a reply from an old acquaintance regarding Razure. The message expresses interest in examining an elf's body, mentions the required payment, and warns that without his involvement, the only remaining option may be the amputation of her limbs. The blunt words leave him uneasy. A sense of urgency settles in, underscoring both the severity of her condition and the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The apothecary fastens Razure securely to his back, and they set off on their journey. Monet and Ane see them off, wishing them a safe trip. The two travel in silence, alert as they follow the path. As they move, he explains that they are heading north to visit an old friend. Their route will take them through a forest, then toward the mountains of Karuga, where a teleportation shop can send them quickly to a northern town. Razure compares it to a portal, and he confirms that it allows instant travel. He tells her about a necklace he placed on her. If she channels magic into it, it will send a distress signal. She nods in understanding. Along the way, she apologizes, worried she may be too heavy to carry. He reassures her with a small smile, explaining that he is used to hauling large amounts of medicinal supplies. Compared to that, she feels light. They walk until evening and set up camp. As he prepares their meal, he reflects on the fact that she can finally speak. Even so, he finds himself unsure of what to say. After a quiet pause, Razure asks his name. He simply tells her to call him the apothecary. She accepts, and they acknowledge each other formally. He reminds himself that she does not need to know more. His priority is her safety and completing her treatment before returning her home. Suddenly, a large bear appears before them. The apothecary steps forward, knowing escape would be difficult while carrying her. Before he can act, Razure makes a sound. The bear immediately retreats, startled. She calmly assures him she is fine. Once it is gone, he wonders if she can communicate with animals. She explains that the bear seemed frightened, though she does not know why. He considers this, noting that whatever the reason, her help was significant. Still, he is puzzled that a king grizzly could be driven off so easily. Before their departure, the apothecary notices the cold, curious stares directed at him. He pauses, wondering how he ended up in such an awkward position and why people look at him that way. Annie points out that traveling north will require warm clothing for Razure. He assures her he has spare garments. However, when he gives them to Razure, they prove far too large. Annie and Monet both comment on the size. He explains that he expected this, as the clothes were originally his. Anne suggests he visit town to buy properly fitting clothing, including undergarments. Razure insists she can manage, but the concern remains. Choosing to stay behind, Annie focuses on caring for the patient and the child. Meanwhile, the apothecary visits a women's clothing store. He feels completely out of place. The employees give him sharp, scrutinizing looks, more uncomfortable than anything he experienced at the obsidian spider's nest. Ignoring the tension, he focuses on buying winter clothing and suitable undergarments for Razuri. He approaches a shop assistant and explains that he is shopping for his sick sister. She questions him, clearly doubtful. He insists the clothes are for Razure, who cannot choose for herself. When asked about her age and condition, he gives vague answers, describing her illness without specifics. Despite this, the employee remains suspicious. On the day of departure, Anne and Monet help Razure try on the new clothes. Quietly, she expresses her gratitude for the apothecary's effort in a soft, heartfelt way. Even after everything is prepared, he cannot forget the cold stares from the shop. The memory lingers, refusing to fade. The next morning, he sets off through the forest again, with Razure secured on his back. The quiet of the woods feels unusual, lacking the familiar signs of wildlife that normally fill the area. The stillness feels unsettling, and he senses it would be wise to move quickly. Razure senses something nearby and signals that some creature is approaching, though she cannot determine its direction. The presence feels immense, and a rising sense of unease fills the air. Suddenly, a large snake emerges in front of them, confirming the source of the tension. The creature is a mutated variant, the same one that must have driven the bear away earlier. It has already detected their presence. The apothecary realizes he has no choice but to confront it. He retrieves the strengthening potion he keeps reserved for emergencies and tells Razure to stay aside as he prepares. Using Faruma, he channels magic into his blade, causing it to resonate. With precise movements, he strikes the snake and defeats it. Once the threat is gone, he returns to Razure and reassures her that it is safe. He reflects that ignoring the creature might have put nearby villages in danger. Although the wound on the snake does not seem severe, he applies an antidote as a precaution. Razuri notices his injury. He explains that it is only a minor scratch and urges them to keep moving, reminding her they are close to their destination. Quietly, she reflects on his steady kindness and calm demeanor, feeling a deep sense of reassurance. They arrive at Karuga and head straight to the teleportation shop, eager to continue toward the northern town. Upon entering, a man behind the counter stops them and immediately objects. He hesitates before explaining that their long-eared companion cannot be included in the service. His words come out awkwardly, hinting at personal bias and suggesting the rule is not always applied consistently. The apothecary responds with calm firmness, stating that Razure is his patient and urgently needs treatment in the north. The clerk listens but points to the regulations, reasoning that the service is mainly for humans and that her appearance makes her stand out. He adds that many clerks develop such biases under pressure from wealthy clients. Still, he offers an alternative, a special cargo request for an additional fee. After a brief pause, the apothecary agrees to pay the extra cost to avoid delay. Beside him, Rasuri quietly apologizes, feeling responsible. He keeps his frustration contained and focuses on her condition. The clerk begins making arrangements. The apothecary thanks him for his cooperation, while Rasure acknowledges it in silence. As preparations continue, the clerk mentions that no extra payment is required at this stage and proceeds with the setup. Once ready, they step forward and are transported. Moments later, they arrive in the northern town of Nosebear, where a woman greets them. The apothecary quickly checks on Resura, asking how she feels after the journey. She instead asks about him. Both confirm they are fine, and he suggests finding a place to rest and eat. He mentions a local specialty, fried bread filled with meat, vegetables, and cheese. They follow his suggestion and try the dish. Resure clearly enjoys it. The apothecary watches with mild surprise at her taste for such rich food. Even so, his thoughts briefly return to the earlier trouble at the shop, though he hopes it is behind them. Later, they secure a room, only to find there is a single bed. With no alternative, they must share it. The apothecary considers sleeping on the floor, but Resure refuses, insisting he rest properly. After a short hesitation, he agrees, reassuring himself that their journey has gone smoothly so far and that their destination is close. The scene shifts to our guy breathing labored, each inhale shallow and strained. A heavy sensation spreads through his body, as if every ounce of strength is being drained, leaving only numbness behind. When Risuzri expresses her concern, he offers a faint reassurance, attempting to dismiss it, yet the condition he is experiencing exceeds simple fatigue. The signs are too severe, too unnatural. He begins to recognize that the injury inflicted by the creature may be the true cause. That realization settles quietly yet firmly in his mind. This situation is far graver than he initially believed. A violent storm rises around them, forcing the two to seek shelter inside a cave. Within the refuge, he manages to start a fire, focusing on the simple task of warming the food they carried. Despite his efforts to appear steady, the weakness persists. When Risuzr asks again, he downplays it, attributing it to mere tiredness. Inside, he silently acknowledges how far he has allowed himself to deteriorate. Regret seeps in as he reflects on his misjudgment. He had believed he could endure it, that he could press on without rest, but that confidence proves painfully misplaced. His thoughts begin to blur, slipping into disarray as his condition worsens. He tries to form a plan, something that might help, but clarity continues to evade him. Even the idea of using a magical signal struggles to take shape in his mind. A deeper worry emerges. He has not yet accomplished what he set out to do. The realization presses down heavily as his body starts to betray him. Amid the raging storm, he stumbles forward through the snow before collapsing onto the frozen ground. The force of the fall leaves him motionless, his consciousness slipping away entirely. Behind him, Risuzr, bound to his back, cannot move, cannot reach him. Panic rises quietly as the situation becomes painfully clear. He no longer responds, and she cannot even see him clearly through the harsh conditions. A sense of helplessness settles over her. He had come this far for her sake, had endured everything to protect and guide her, yet now she finds herself incapable of returning even a fraction of that help. The weight of that understanding presses down, but alongside it, a quiet determination begins to surface. She remembers the necklace and the purpose he explained. It requires energy to function as a signal, meant to call for aid. Summoning what little strength she has, she focuses on the object. The attempt is arduous, her energy limited, yet she presses on, forcing more into it despite the strain. The light it produces flickers, struggling to grow brighter. She pushes herself further, driven by the urgency of the situation and the memory of everything he had done for her. He had reached out when she had nothing, offering reassurance and protection without hesitation. That memory fuels her persistence, even as her strength wanes. The storm shows no sign of abating. Her body weakens with every passing moment, yet she continues, urging the light to shine more brightly, hoping it will be seen by someone, anyone. Her focus begins to waver as exhaustion overtakes her, yet she refuses to stop. Even when the effort becomes nearly unbearable, she perseveres, until the light falters and her strength nearly disappears. As the signal weakens, a new thought emerges. If she cannot call for help effectively, she must attempt something else. She tries to move, using the last reserves of her control to reach him. If she can cover him, if she can provide even a small amount of warmth, it might make a difference. The movement is slow and labored, her body barely responding, but her resolve remains unshaken. Her strength continues to slip away, her vision dimming as exhaustion fully overtakes her. Acting, helping, even thinking of a plan becomes almost impossible. Yet her determination remains unchanged to do something, anything, before it is too late. As awareness begins to fade, she spends the last of her energy reaching toward him, clinging to the single hope that someone might arrive in time to save him. The scene shifts to the apothecary's past. The horned man brings him to Adam and asks the doctor to examine the boy. Adam, busy with his research, complains about the interruption. He remarks that he would rather have a fresh body than a Kurosuke. The horned man insists that the boy is worth saving. As Kurosuke watches Adam, he notices the man's cold, stitched hands and senses something unsettling, almost serpent-like. Adam questions the point of examining the boy if he cannot remove a few parts. In the present, the apothecary wakes from this memory. Adam stands before him, noting that he is finally awake and commenting on his behavior. Adam brings up the danger they recently faced. He explains that Gauche and the elf were the ones who saved him, reminding him how close he came to death. When the apothecary asks about the elf, Adam tells him she is resting in another room. She exhausted herself using magic to help Gauche find them. He adds that the apothecary can thank her once she wakes. The apothecary then explains how he fought a monster and suffered the injury. Adam scolds him for overworking and acting without thinking. He points out that rushing into danger and hesitating at the wrong moment led to his current state. Now that he is safe, the apothecary apologizes. Adam shifts the topic and asks about money. The apothecary confirms he brought some. He suggests to earn more through work, but the Adam refuses. He insists that everything he has, his body and his knowledge, came from his own sacrifices. Kurosuke wonders if it's enough. Adam assures him it will cover what they need for now. He then heads to check on the elf. As the apothecary tries to get out of bed, magic binds his hands and stops him. Adam tells him to stay still and begins a detailed examination using his aruma. Adam smugly mentions that it has been a long time since he dealt with elf bones. Apothecary shouts, knowing he must accompany him. They go to Resure and Adam begins the procedure with his aruma. Later, at the dining table, Adam explains her condition. He says it is highly unusual, but notes that the apothecary's treatment helped. Her skin and internal organs are healing, which is a good sign. However, her eyes and limbs are a bigger concern. Her left eye is intact, but no longer connected to the nerves, so it cannot function. Her right eye has been sealed with magic to protect her body and mind from further harm. Her limbs show no visible wounds, but a decaying curse is spreading inside them, causing an infection. It moves slowly, likely because of the elves' natural healing ability, but it cannot be stopped, only delayed. They both understand the conclusion. If nothing is done, the condition will become fatal. Removing the affected parts may be the only way to save her. The situation is critical. If left untreated, it could threaten her life. The only option is to remove all 4 limbs. Gauche brings Resure closer, and she expresses her gratitude quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. From behind, the apothecary steps forward, speaking gently to acknowledge her presence. A faint smile tugs at Resure's lips, and her tension eases slightly in response to his calm demeanor. He humbly deflects the thanks, noting that his own ability is limited in her condition. Still, he reminds her that calling for help with the amulet put them both at risk, and he offers a sincere apology for the danger caused. Sensing the concern etched in his expression, Resure asks if something is wrong. He admits that her limbs are in worse condition than anticipated, and that her life is at serious risk. Amputation may be unavoidable, even here. Resure steadies herself and tries to stay calm. She trusts the doctor's skill and the apothecary's presence. Even though she feels anxious, she takes a deep breath and holds on to that trust. The apothecary looks at her and understands how she feels. He speaks gently, encouraging her and reminding her that they will face this together. Outside the room, Adam and Gauche stay silent, watching closely as the preparations begin. The treatment commences. The apothecary carefully examines the situation and observes that some preserved limbs are in better condition than the deteriorated ones, offering a chance to avoid losing all 4. Suitable replacements rest in cold storage, though rehabilitation afterward promises to be grueling. Placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, he conveys without words that she will be well cared for. Adam takes responsibility for cleaning and preparing the affected areas, leaving the amputation itself in the apothecary's skilled hands. Determined to succeed, he steels himself, resolved to honor the trust she places in him and to do everything possible for her recovery. Kurosuke listens closely as Adam explains the situation. He notes that exhaustion is normal after such a procedure and reminds him that the operation required removing flesh and bone of his companion to save her. Kurosuke feels uneasy at the thought, but Adam quickly reassures him, pointing out that his feelings are obvious from his expression, no words needed. The apothecary thanks Adam for finding compatible parts, recognizing how important his help was. Looking at the results, Adam remarks that the procedure was not only necessary, but also a rare chance to study what happens when a high elf's limb is attached to a normal elf. The arm, rich in magical energy and well-preserved, offers valuable insight. Even so, Adam calmly tells Resure to stop fidgeting with it, stressing the need for careful recovery. After some time, Resure wakes and asks about her condition. Adam tells her the operation was successful. The decay is gone, though she may feel some discomfort. She mentions that her body feels light, and he offers pain relief if needed. When she asks about her limbs, he confirms that both her new arm and leg were attached successfully. However, she will not be able to move them yet. The nerves and magical circuits need time to recover, and she will need rehabilitation. She accepts this calmly, ready to endure it. Adam then states that both Resure and Kurosuke must remain under observation, as they are still weak. When she asks about the name Kurosuke, Adam explains that he received it as a child. He adds that once they recover, they will need to assist him like his arms and legs. Their survival depends on cooperation, and he expects them to understand that. A few days later, Adam enters and tells Kurosuke to organize the cold storage, warning him about the freezing conditions. Kurosuke realizes the strict rules come from a past failed experiment. He also understands that the large collection of body parts exists for Adam's work. Remembering that both he and Resure were saved because of Adam, he accepts the task without hesitation. To him, it is the least he can do. He approaches the work as routine. Adam later reminds him to keep his voice down. Kurosuke spends the entire day cleaning. Afterward, he feeds Resure by hand while she holds on to him, apologizing for needing his help every day. He reassures her that it is not a burden. He explains that circulation in her new limbs is still weak, and stimulating the nerves is necessary for recovery. At one point, he notices a slight movement in her finger, a sign that the nerves are beginning to respond. She says she still cannot feel anything, but he assures her that sensation will return with time and continued effort. Encouraged, Resure promises to mark the moment when she can finally squeeze his hand. He gently holds it, quietly saying he looks forward to that day. A few days later, the apothecary and Resure are about to leave. Before leaving, Kurosuke apologizes for the trouble caused. Adam reassures them that it is nothing serious, the limbs have fused correctly, and that all signs of decay have disappeared. Now, only the rehabilitation nurse's expertise remains to ensure proper recovery. Both the apothecary and Resure express their determination to do their best in assisting with the remaining care. Adam suggests stepping outside for a moment. The apothecary looks at her curiously and asks what she wants to discuss. Adam explains that some matters are too personal for others to hear. She plans for Ghosh to carry Resure while the apothecary prepares to pack up. Noticing Adam's past as a man, the apothecary hesitates before asking his question. Adam responds gently, explaining that it would be improper to interfere in private conversations between women, or if it's issue, consider the conversation confidential between doctor and patient. Once outside on the balcony, Adam mentions some of Resure's previous trauma that has severely affected her physical functions, leaving her unable to recall certain memories. Still, there is one aspect she remains aware of concerning her body. Placing a hand lightly on Resure's head, Adam acknowledges the complexity of the situation. She emphasizes that while treatment is possible, it carries significant risks and requires an important decision on Resure's part. Outside, the apothecary watches quietly, wondering what they are discussing. Adam then leads her downstairs, prompting the apothecary to ask about an item she had intended to give. She reveals that it is an air gowel, the same one previously used, which she recovered after it was lost. She explains that the air gowel was custom-made by dwarves and difficult to maintain, so she had little personal need for it. The apothecary expresses gratitude, recognizing that it will spare them a long journey and be more comfortable for Resure as well. Adam clarifies that it is not solely for her benefit, but also for Resure's. Later, Adam hands the air gowel to her, and she thanks him along with the apothecary. They prepare to depart. Resure expresses her gratitude quietly for all the help she has received. Adam mentions that she has already gathered valuable research and that the apothecary need not return, though he protests the phrasing. As they begin their journey, the apothecary checks on Resure. She reassures him that she is fine and not feeling cold at all. Reflecting on her conversation with Adam, the apothecary notices that Resure appears more somber. Adam suggested that the content of that private discussion should remain confidential, even from the apothecary. Nonetheless, she affirms that he will be there whenever Resure needs assistance, and that Resure can rely on him without hesitation. Resure expresses her gratitude quietly, feeling reassured. The scene shifts to Kurosuke's past. Memories of failure and loss weigh heavily on him. Everything he had worked for has collapsed, along with the companions who shared his path. The goals he chased and the ideals he cherished now feel out of reach. He is defeated, having lost everything. Adam notices the gloom on Kurosuke's face and remarks that everyone is gone and will not return. These words bring back the horned man's final apology, that they could not start the revolution. He acknowledges that his own selfishness contributed to these failures, pulling Kurosuke down with him, and urges Kurosuke to live as he truly wants. Kurosuke recalls the last moments of the lives he affected, lives now ended, including parts of his own spirit. All that remains are his hands, empty and stained. He quietly asks a question that lingers in his mind. What does it truly mean to live freely, unbound by the past or by one's mistakes? One day, while Resure is relaxing in a warm bath, Ani enters to check on her. She tests the water temperature and makes sure Resure isn't feeling lightheaded. Resure smiles and reassures her that she's enjoying the comfort of the bath. Soon after, Monet joins them. Ane helps make space for everyone. Resure looks happy to have company, and Monet suggests they should spend more time together because it feels fun and relaxing. Ane observes Resure's resilience and strength. She notes how Resure manages many burdens despite her delicate frame and honest nature. Ane acknowledges that Resure now faces the challenge of adapting to her new limbs, but expresses confidence that support will help her overcome it. Resure realizes that someone believes in her. Ane explains that she can usually sense this person's thoughts. Resure reflects on the years since he arrived in the village, considering his dedication and the difficulty of obtaining medicine, which makes his visits invaluable. Ani continues, noting that he smiles more now than when he first appeared. She reassures Rezure that they are also available whenever needed. Monet nods in agreement, and Rezure feels gratitude, recognizing a sense of family forming around her, even if it feels unfamiliar. That evening, the apothecary examines Rezure and begins applying ointment to her recovering wounds. He mentions that her bangs need a slight trim, and she allows him to adjust them, feeling relieved that she will not draw attention in town. Her scars gradually fade, and her expressions grow more lively. With less direct care required, the apothecary can spend more time in his shop during the day. During the day, he ensures Rezure rests while replenishing her magical energy from the surrounding air. He guides her in using subtle light vibrations to stimulate nerve recovery, especially in her limbs. At night, he helps her practice directing her magic to her fingertips. Even small movements count as progress, and she continues these exercises diligently. Despite lingering pain from her surgery, Rezure progresses faster than expected. The apothecary encourages her to continue steadily without pushing too hard. Later, he mentions the cookies, and the apothecary offers them to Rezure as a small reward for her efforts. She eats them happily, enjoying the treat and feeling motivated to continue moving her arm and refining her magical control. 1 month later, their usual exercises focus on Rezure's wrists and elbows. She approaches the routine with determination, surprising the apothecary with the noticeable improvement in her magical abilities. She reports that she can feel her hand again, finally able to respond to his guidance with a firm grip. The apothecary, holding her hand, is astonished by her progress, remarking on how impressive it is, considering only a month has passed since her surgery. Rezure acknowledges that her nightly efforts contributed to this recovery. She has committed herself, beginning each morning by trying to move her fingers and continuing discreet practice during the day whenever she is alone. Even while resting in bed, she endures lingering pain consciously, steadily building strength and control. The apothecary affirms that her progress results from her own dedication, not just his guidance. In the darkness, an elf resembling Rezure is seen looking for her Oni-san. The apothecary examines Rezure and notices that the control in her hands has improved significantly. Observing this progress, he begins training her to eat independently, letting her proceed at her own pace. At first, she hesitates, uncertainty flickering across her features, but her eyes reveal a clear determination to manage it by herself. After serving the food, the apothecary secures a spoon in her hand so she can hold it properly. He gently guides her hand toward the bowl placed before her, supporting the movement without taking control. With careful effort, she lifts some food and, after a tense moment, manages to take a bite on her own. A quiet, overwhelmed sob escapes her lips, tears welling in her eyes as the realization of her achievement settles in. A sense of accomplishment floods her, brightening her expression. The apothecary acknowledges her progress with a warm, encouraging smile, urging her to continue. As she eats, the taste of the dumplings reaches her, and her eyes widen slightly at the flavor. She finds them delicious, a small joy amidst her hard work. He ensures that bringing the food to her mouth remains comfortable, explaining that the dish is made from fish paste. As she continues eating without difficulty, more is offered. She nods in agreement. She shows her satisfaction through subtle smiles and quiet sighs of contentment. Being able to eat by herself again gradually restores her appetite. The apothecary brings Rezure into the forest on a wheelchair made by the village carpenter. As it's lunchtime, they sit down to eat. He pours some soup into a mug and hands it to her. She holds it carefully, inhaling the pleasant aroma and showing quiet appreciation. As her fingers wrap around the mug, she notices that strength is gradually returning to her hands, a small but satisfying sign of progress. While they sit, a small squirrel approaches. Rezure notices it drawing closer and becomes aware of its gentle presence. The animal climbs onto her arm without hesitation, and she allows it to stay, offering it her calm attention. Eventually, the squirrel settles in her lap and falls asleep. Watching this, Rezure feels a profound connection to the place around her and the people within it. A deep attachment stirs in her heart, along with a longing to remain there for the rest of her life. The apothecary turns his attention to her, silently wondering whether her lost memories have returned. When she reacts with regret, he dismisses her worry, reassuring her inwardly. He notes that her recovery has been steady, a thought that brings him quiet relief. He also reflects that, if her memories were to return, he could take her back to the place where she originally belonged. Rezure considers her hometown, trying to picture it despite having no recollection. The apothecary explains that, when they first met, she had continuously expressed a longing to return there. From this, he infers that her home and her family must have held great importance in her life. A strong intention to restore those things fills him, rooted in a wish he has carried all along. Resure feels gratitude toward him, recognizing the happiness she has experienced during her time with him. Yet he internally rejects the need for such thanks, acknowledging that his actions were not entirely selfless. He prepares to reveal a part of his past. He recalls losing his parents at a very young age. A demon took him in and treated him kindly, providing care and support. That same figure later introduces him to Adam. As time passes, he grows up under their guidance and eventually becomes someone capable of taking lives. He remembers a time when demons planned to overthrow the ruling Iruda, who had oppressed other races. The one who once saved him rose to lead this movement. Although he belongs to the Iruda himself, he feels drawn to the leader's sense of fairness toward all races. This conviction compels him to join them. He recognizes his own limitations compared to others, so he avoided fighting on the front lines. Instead, he took on a supporting role and eliminates targets from the shadows. During this period, he seeks dangerous creatures to create poisons. This builds the foundation of his knowledge as an apothecary. At the same time, he develops and wields his own unique magic as a practical tool. As these memories resurface, the weight of his past becomes painfully clear. Many lives across different races, Iruda, elves, dwarves, and beast folk, were lost due to his actions. He justified all of them by a greater cause. His present self feels shaped by these events, as though his very being has been pieced together from those dark and haunting experiences. After recounting the full story of his past, he explains how his hands bear the marks of blood and how every one of his targets remains etched in his memory. He describes the necessity of knowing his enemies thoroughly, their homes, their families, their routines, to ensure success. He recounts his first assignment: a prominent aristocrat named Iruda, whose grandchild was soon to be born. The child's arrival makes no difference to him. He recalls the smallest details about the target's habits, the cup of morning coffee, the way he carried himself, and how he used poison to complete the task. Over time, eliminating becomes mechanical. The taste of coffee returns to normal, but the faces of those he has ended remain imprinted in his mind. Even now, visions of them appear. He no longer feels fear at their presence. It has become a natural consequence of his actions. He regards the end of such life as nothing more than a form of atonement, a necessary measure to balance the world as he sees it. He explains how he repurposed his knowledge and skills to work as an apothecary. By chance, he encountered Resuri, and that encounter felt like a fleeting glimpse into the path he has taken. He reflects on those who never return to their homes and understands that his actions leave lasting effects. He cannot erase what he has done. His past and present selves are inseparable, bound together in a life shaped by choice and consequence. He believes he has no right to remain close to her, acknowledging the contradiction in living alongside someone he wishes to protect while haunted by the shadows of his own deeds. Hearing this, Resure reacts with determination. Her voice carries strength and unwavering resolve. Despite everything he has revealed, she refuses to accept that he is undeserving of care or trust. In her eyes, he remains her protector, someone she cannot abandon, no matter what the past holds. Resure feels a deep conflict rise within her. She realizes how quickly she judged him, and the thought unsettles her. Her mind drifts, questioning why he has devoted so much time and effort to caring for her. She does not recognize his face. She holds no memories of him and knows nothing of his past. Yet even so, she feels the undeniable kindness he shows. Both her heart and body respond to it without hesitation. She struggles with these emotions, quietly insisting to herself that he is not merely an atoner or someone burdened by guilt. To her, he is her savior. Gratitude swells within her, growing stronger as the realization settles deep in her chest. A distance lingers between them. She senses it clearly and understands that her voice and emotions fail to reach him. He remains wrapped in a heavy despair she cannot break through. She studies his expression, searching for pain or tears, but finds nothing she can clearly grasp. Despite the intensity of her feelings, he downplays them and suggests that she might be better off spending less time with him. Even so, she begins to understand the depth of his hidden emotions. He has sealed his heart behind walls shaped by years of guilt and darkness. Only now, through her closeness to him, does she start to perceive it clearly. She reflects on how she always sensed something heavy within him, yet chose to rely on him while ignoring that weight. The apothecary spoke about slowly regaining control over her body. He also suggested she might try to find her hometown using any small memories she could remember, like sights, weather, or even a faint smell. His words stirred something inside her. She felt frustrated, but determination quickly followed. She refuses to stay still. A restless urge pushes her forward, urging her to act, to reconnect, and to reach him. She wants to break through the walls he has built and understand the real apothecary, the person hiding behind his guilt and restraint. As she watches him, her focus sharpens. She notices his long black hair, deep red eyes, and the subtle changes in his expression. With each passing moment, she understands him better. Slowly, she begins to see him as he truly is. Relief washes over her, as she can see him clearly. She realizes his kindness is real, and so is the happiness he brings her. The wall between them begins to crumble, breaking under trust and understanding. In this moment, something changes. The distance between them closes, and they share a heartfelt moment.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away.